But everything you just said, it sounds very hard to do many of it. So I can only guess the next topic would be predictive analytics. At the end of the day, you mentioned probabilities, you mentioned correlations, a bunch of other words that made me puke when I was in my high school years. But at the end of the day, it's all targeted into predictive analytics. And let's talk a little bit about predictive analytics. What do you see as the key challenges in implementing predictive analytics? And how can organizations overcome this to improve force factors?
So what do I say is the biggest obstacle of people embracing predictive analytics? Is that what the question is then?
Exactly.
That's the question. It's interesting because when I started, 4 or 5 years ago, really starting to push predictive analytics. When I, wrote my first book, Predictive Analytics of Business Forecasting, kind of push people towards this in the field. I mean, I was passionate about it, and I was surprised more people didn't embrace, because they talk about it and they shake their head and yes, but more companies didn't embrace it, and we're still not seeing the companies embrace it. Back to IBF research, right now, only about 17 to 20% of the organizations use any external data in their forecasting process. So there's still, 80% of the companies out there are not utilizing external data out there, which is just a surprise to me. They're still in, which then looking at organizations and figuring out the why aren't organizations really doing that. It really, I don't know if it's a mindset or it's just laziness, but it's an inside out thinking versus an outside in thinking. And what I mean by that is an inside out thinking is everything that happens in your world is inside your four walls of your organization. I sell something, I have this time series data. I'm going to look back at my history data, extrapolate a pattern, assume that pattern holds, build that, and assume they're going to come build it. That's an inside out. I'm building, it's more of a push type of model, more of demand driven, and an outside in model looks at the markets, looks at the customers, looks at, external, and try to bring that in and match your strategies, match to what the market is. And it seems logical, but it's really truly a mind shift for a lot of people. And I said, I don't know if it's a comfort zone or just it's an internal philosophy of everything happens inside your own four walls, but people need to go outside of their organizations, and that's what they're not doing.
I think it's even more than that. I think that, at the end of the day, you start by building a process. With time, you grow, and it becomes a mindset. And with time, it becomes a culture. And it's a very cultural thing in my eyes, okay, at least. Because what we see, I don't think they're lazy, because they, especially, supply chain professionals, they are very hard workers. They are not lazy. But they lack the best practices. They lack the philosophy, and they lack the collaborative view, because you talk about explanatory variables, okay, external data. You need to know, we don't know what we don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to gather everyone and truly understand how things are working in our organization. Okay, what impacts what, and how can I connect those dots and really understand this supply chain network? Because it's very hard to understand it if you don't bring everyone to the table and really start to talk about cause and effect.
Yeah.
And that's an S&OP process. At the end of the day, you bring all the people, all the important people of your company, and you start talking about, where we did great and where we weren't so successful, and what needs to be changed. And I think this is actually it's a growth cycle that you need to embed into your strategy, and it's it starts with a simple process. It's
Yeah.
called S&OP.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
it's not laziness. I think it's more than that.
And I agree. Now, I kind of backtrack on my. I think that was the wrong choice of word. I don't mean laziness because I do not know a supply chain or demand planning person that is lazy. I
Yeah.
think it's what I prefer is they're overwhelmed. I think is the better
Overwhelmed.
term. I think I miss.
I
Let me
agree.
backtrack. I don't mean lazy. There's none of them that are lazy. They're overwhelmed. They are doing so many things. They don't have time to do that, and because they look at
Exactly.
what data do I need? How do I need? And it seems overwhelming to them to be able to
And it
change
is,
what
let's be
currently
honest,
happens.
it is. It's very, very hard. They are packed with information, data, requests, and they're very much, tactics driven instead of, looking at the big picture and
Yep.
start to talk in the language of optimization. When I say optimize things, people are losing. We can really optimize things. We just need to stop doing what we're doing and think about the overall consequences and the cause and effect and how can we do small steps in order to achieve
Hmm.
a continuous improvement rather than delayed perfection.